Well, welcome everybody. We were just trying, we're trying to be more technological than we usually are at this in-person meeting. We're hoping that people can, I'm going to take my mask off since I'm allowed to as the speaker. We're hoping that people will be able to log in through Zoom and hear what we're all saying. So hello, everybody out there. Hoping that, we have some of you, and welcome to the Czechoslovak Studies Association meeting for 2021. We're expecting some more people from the association to be here. The ones that are leaders of the Slovak Studies Association, they're going to be drifting in as soon as they feel like they can, comfortably wrap up that meeting. But the first item on our agenda is approval of the minutes from the 2020 meeting. Now, this is something where I realized that I failed to bring those along for you to look at. On the other hand, they were published in the spring newsletter. So I think the thing is, if anybody has some strong objection to what was in the spring newsletter, this is the time to say so. Otherwise, I'm hoping that we can approve the minutes. No objections. And can one or the other of you take minutes for this meeting? Because we need to, since we don't know if Tom is signed in.
Oh, it's recording though, so.
Oh, it's recording, so.
I believe it's recording. Yes, it's recording so that we can, it'll be easier to go back and watch this and
Okay,
take notes.
if you're willing to rely on that it's truly recording.
I believe so.
All right, in my tech nervousness. All right, so the first thing is, after the approval of the minutes that we assume nothing is wrong with, is the report of the Secretary Treasurer. And we don't seem to have Tom with us, but actually, Jacob, if you can hand me the, oh wait, I have that at the end of the printout of the newsletter. So I will pretend that I am Tom for the moment. We have cash balances in the operating fund, including the book prize funds and the PayPal account, of over $18,000, and in the PEC prize fund, $48.53.66. That is before disbursements for this year's, the prizes that we are about to award. So we had 1808 in dues. We earned a little bit in interest, almost $400. We spent on website design and website hosting, and PayPal and bank fees and newsletter production and so forth. So expenses and transfers for the period were $1,041.04. So you all, I think, have the copy of the financials. That's not an area that I'm any expert on, so I'm not going to talk more about it, except that Tom feels like we are in decent financial shape, and he's happy about that, and I am happy about that. So we will now turn to Jacob, our Vice President, and I want to give a big thank you to Jacob for everything that he has been doing this past year, and for that matter, ever since we were both elected to president and vice president. And Jacob has really done a lot of work relating to our online presence. He's worked with our web designer, Anna, and so let's give a round of applause in thanks. And now tell us about all the wonderful things that have happened with that we've done with the website.
Great. So for those of you who are, I'm going to put the website in the chat really quickly. Czechoslovak Studies.com. There should be 3 W's. So sorry about that. This is our website, Czechoslovakstudies.com. many, in fact, most thanks are due, if not all, to Anna Heran, who put this together for us. We noticed that our web presence was a bit out of date, and we started with a website. So I just want to go through it a little bit quickly for you, and there are some few quick topics for discussions. A lot of it is somewhat sensible. This is the homepage. This is just a welcome, a landing page. The About Us has a history of the Czechoslovak Studies Association. We have some new text that is going to go up soon. A list of officers and bylaws, which are older than you'd think, but they're there, and we may want to make some changes to the bylaws today, and they'll be reflected online. I will not click on the current award winners because, well, we're going to announce that later, but we have the book prize, the Emerging Scholars Prize, the Stanley Peck Prize. You can read about it when appropriate. There's also how to apply for it as well. A list of past winners. So I'll click on that because it's always nice to celebrate people's achievements. So you can see it's just sort of nicely written down. There's a record of it. It's something one can point to or browse with insomnia. I'll skip over this. Social media is something we are currently working on. We have a Twitter feed. If this is the slowest internet, we have a Twitter feed. If you are not on Twitter, if you are on Twitter, you can follow us. It's a nice way to keep in touch and to post announcements. We have two Facebook groups. One is our Czechoslovak Studies Association. That is the Facebook group of the association. The posts there are mostly announcements about events and things related to society. The Czechoslovak Studies, this one, the association group, is people can post updates, ask questions, and people use it quite frequently. You can read the feeds here, at least one of the feeds here. We're working on this site. Facebook changed how it integrates with blogs and websites, and it's causing a bit of annoyance. But so that's there. The newsletter, you can find always the current newsletter here. And these are all downloadable, obviously. This is going to save us a lot of money in postage and printing. So I'm very happy about that. And we are slowly but surely working on an archive of old newsletters in case someone wants to write a dissertation on the history of the Czechoslovak Studies Association. The materials will be here. This is just our annual meeting. There's really no reason to click on that. This is now a membership. You can sign up, you can pay for and register for membership here, or one can download the form and mail them or email them as in past years. So this becomes a bit easier to manage. A simple contact page. You've all seen these before. And a donations page if you are so inclined and so employed. The few things that need some discussion is the blog. What role will a blog play? And what sorts of things do we want to put on the blog? There's been a lot of discussion. I think where we landed was it's a great place to post one-off announcements, but also if you've recorded an event and would like to share it, you can, there's a section for submitting a blog post. The blogs are going to be vetted, not, just to keep them within some frame of that they're pertinent. You can email to czechoslovakstudies@gmail.com, and we'll post your videos, link to your videos, link to announcements. And we have it set up now, I believe, on the homepage that you can sign up to get an announcement whenever there is a new, there it is. Whenever there's a new blog post, you'll find out about it. So it's a nice way to keep in touch. We've declined to post an event page because particularly if there are events, that's really less useful since we're spread out all over the world. And Zoom events, something like that can be announced over. And to that end, we've also started a Google group, a listserv, which we haven't had for a number of years. That's how we can communicate directly with one another. You can write whatever you want. It's not going to be edited. And Google will keep a record of discussions so that you can have an ongoing discussion in different threads. That's where we can also announce for each other what is going on, reminders of events, which is why we're not going to have a calendar page. It would just be too cumbersome. And the last page that we're going to add, I think for now, if I'm remembering everything correctly, is a resources page. And I've started and will circulate a Google Doc where people can upload, you know, the Czech Center in New York City, the Society for the History of Czech and Slovak Jews. Really any center that wants to be listed can be listed. It doesn't cost anyone any money. And it could eventually be a nice place for people to go to see where things are happening. So that's what we've been working on. Again, I really want to thank Anna Heron for her excellent work with this. And I want to open the floor to questions or suggestions. On Twitter, I think we're Czechoslovak SA, or at Czechoslovak SA is how you find us. Questions, desires for the online world? Yes. There isn't, no.
It is, but it's not something that, I mean, we are among the sponsors for it, but it isn't part of the organization. Okay. So it's something that, at least according to the way things are currently working, it will be, I suppose, on the blog, things like that, but we don't own it.
And certainly on the resource page.
Yeah.
And the Slovak Studies Association will be on the resource page.
Exactly.
In
Mm-hmm.
Do you know?
Yeah, I mean,
Do you know if they keep a website? I've never gone to it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Oh, so that we could set something up, excuse me, potentially to redirect or give a link to it. I think we want to be careful about not taking ownership of it, but I think you're right that it's something that is important in our field.
Yeah, I mean, it's hugely important. I just don't want to step on the toes of the institutions that sponsor it. So maybe, those of you who actually, I mean, like Chad, for instance, you might want to think through whether how we should address that.
There was a request from people watching online if we could repeat the questions, and it's simply we just gave a presentation briefly about the website. Unfortunately, you weren't able to see it because we're working off of 2 computers. We probably could have done that better, and I apologize. So if you look at the website, and I put a link to it, if there is something that you missing or could be added, if you think that could be something for suggestions and comments.
And also, one of the questions was, this was from Jindřich Toman, as to can we incorporate the workshop into the website, and so we're trying to discuss that. So I think the question of exactly how to address the workshop on the webpage is something we should talk more about with the organizations that put it on, and with the full board in attendance. Probably like a Zoom talk where we're all there, so that we come up with something that, because I agree. I mean, it's something so important that we do.
Oh, that for sure.
Okay. Oh, Okay,
Yindra was suggesting that just links would be sufficient. And so that's something that can be done easily, and we'll discuss it with the board because everything should go through the proper channels, but it shouldn't be a major problem at all.
yeah.
Any other questions, comments, ideas?
All right, well, we're always open to, further comments and suggestions on the website and our internet presence in general.
There's,
Oh, yes.
I don't know how you integrate it with the website. It may not be something that you want public necessarily, but just thinking of digital tools would be nice to be sort of directory, maybe the Facebook group knows things like that already, but somewhere I can go and if I wanted to find out what other grad students have writing about 19th century Habsburg Czech, whatever, and I could go to either a Google Doc or a Google spreadsheet and just sort by whatever, and then I had emails there or a very brief description of the dissertation or something, just to facilitate networking amongst grad students especially.
Sure.
that's an excellent idea, and it's something that board members have discussed. The question is how to build something like that, right? It's Anna's done a very good job. This is very different from building a website with membership pages and searchable data. It's something we're looking into, and depending upon cost and how, no one has voiced an objection to the idea of having that. The question is, can we have that?
Yeah, how to do it effectively and well and not put out information on public that people aren't comfortable with.
Also, I note that ACES does have this, right? And if you're a member of ACES, it's relatively easy to find through ACES. And the question is it reduplicative? And is that, always the best use of time and energy? But you're right. This would be a great resource for connecting people.
Great. Anything else relating to internet? Okay, well, then the next report is on the newsletter. I have been the interim newsletter editor. And I'll speak into the computer and sort of off to the audience that's present here. I'm happy to continue doing the newsletter, so I'm willing to become the kind of next permanent newsletter editor. I've been enjoying doing it. I'm interested in getting ideas from from members on types of articles or interviews or things that people would like to see in the newsletter. So just feel free to contact me with things that you would like to see or that you would like to volunteer to write, and all of that kind of thing. So I think that's really all that we need to say about the newsletter at this point. Next, we have the report on the 2020 Pech Prize, which is for articles published in 2018 and 2019. And Hugh Agnew is going to present that.
And Jacob has kindly moved the webinar computer in front of me. So essentially, because of the disruption that COVID caused, we extended the period to consider articles, although we still retained the time frame for publication that was in that cycle. So the next cycle can still be in the usual one. For the 2020 competition, the committee was me, Todd Hubner, and Tom Ort. We received really a number of excellent submissions. They covered an incredibly wide range of topics and approaches. They represented both established and rising scholars. But although the very diversity of these nominations made the process of selecting a winner a challenge, it became clear to the committee that there was one article that really stood out among all the others. So we see the wide range of topics and approaches as very good testimony to the health of the field and especially among the rising scholars who made presentations. So the Stanley Z. Peck Prize for Best Article for 2018 to 2019 goes to Claire Morillon for her Sounds of Loss, Church Bells, Place, and Time in the Habsburg Empire during the First World War, which was published in Past and Present, volume 244, issue 1. That was August 2019. In this elegantly written and moving article, Morillon explores the impact during the First World War of the melting of church bells for ammunition manufacture upon communities in the Austrian half of the Habsburg monarchy. And I should say a lot of her evidence comes from the Bohemian lands. Combining diverse, I should say the lands of the Bohemian crown, Bohemia, Moravia, and Austrian Silesia. Combining diverse methodological approaches and an impressive mastery of primary sources, particularly those from the Bohemian crown lands, Morillon probes the sensory history of the war as the silencing of bells altered local soundscapes, and with them the population's sense of place, time, and community. In 4 well-conceived select sections, she first explores the mechanics of the government's campaign to requisition bells despite the growing disquiet at this form of patriotic sacrifice. She considers the painful impact of the removals on one of the pillars of Habsburg legitimacy, the Catholic Church. She examines the way in which people experienced the destruction of the bells as an attack on local identity and sense of place, evoking strong emotional responses that varied according to urban or rural setting. And finally, she explores the disruption of the local sense of time and the population's relationship to death. Morillon argues that as the war progressed, these disorienting transformations contributed to the delegitimization of the Habsburg state that was responsible for them. During the interwar years, many communities strove to replace these lost bells, but the Second World War brought a renewed requisitioning by the Nazis, followed in much of the former monarchy by a post-war communist regime that had no interest in restoring missing church bells. Since 1989, popular subscriptions have raised funds to replace many bells yet again, but as Morillon concludes, and I quote, "The soundscape of bells as they rang in towns and villages in the early part of the 20th century is lost forever." Claire was unable to come in person to the convention. She wrote me regretfully saying that she wouldn't be here, but we did want to read that into the record and publicly in front of you all. Thank you.
And welcome to our members that are coming back from the Slovak Studies Association meeting. We appreciate your being here. And next, Jacob will read out the citations for the book prize.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, and I should have brought, didn't think. Okay. So I was not a member of the committee, and I'm going to read the citation verbatim, but I've also only glanced at it once before. Please excuse me for any errors. The Book Prize Committee of the Czechoslovak Studies Association, Mark Cornwall, Kate Giustino, and James Krapfel, received a large number of interesting and important works for careful consideration. The committee is pleased to award the prize for the best book to Carla Hubner for Magnetic Woman, Toyen and the Surrealist Erotic, published by University of Pittsburgh Press in 2020. So this can be here and you can peruse it if you like. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Carla Hubner's Magnetic Mountain is a meticulously researched and carefully argued exploration of the leading Czech surrealist artist, Maria Černínová Toyen. Confronting a subject who is notoriously difficult to investigate, Hubner's work is path-breaking and polished, not only in delving deep into the surrealist worlds of Prague and Paris, but in discussing head-on the still under-researched queer, trans, and feminist dimensions of modern Czech history. Magnetic Woman proves to be the best introduction to Czech surrealism in English. It is also a beautifully crafted book, richly illustrated, and revealing admirably the author's own immersion in her subject. While the reader encounters the enigmatic Toyen in her Czech and French artistic milieu as an artist who both reflected and challenged artistic conventions, we also meet an individual who consistently challenged contemporary conventions about sexuality and gender. As such, the story and personality of Toyen is still strikingly relevant to our own world. Hübner's book deserves a large audience, for it forces us all to think about Czechoslovak history through a new lens. The committee is also pleased to award honorable mention to Anna Hajková for The Last Ghetto, an everyday history of Theresienstadt, published by Oxford University Press in 2020. In The Last Ghetto, Anna Hajková presents an in-depth, wide-ranging examination of power and everyday life in Theresienstadt. She challenges us to think about human nature and historical continuity in grave circumstances from which escape is totally or nearly impossible. Do we behave exceptionally, stepping far outside of our biological and cultural proclivities when we live in extremis without guarantees of freedom and safety? Mobilizing an impressive wealth of primary sources and employing the theory of Pierre Bourdieu's, among others, Hajková reveals a hierarchical society in which older and newer perceptions of the ethnic, national, political, professional, age, and gender differences affected one's status and opportunities for limited material resources. Relative agency and life. Direct quotations from inmates in Theresienstadt are interwoven throughout the book, giving names and voices to the ghetto's inhabitants and helping to make known some of the individuals lost to the mass death of the Nazi Holocaust. This award considered books published in the years 2019 and 2020. The 2023 book prize will consider books published in 2021 and 2022, so get cracking.
Thank you, Jacob. And before I start to read about the new Emerging Scholar Prize, I'll mention that I have with my book, University of Pittsburgh Press is doing a 30% discount until the end of the month for anyone that wants to buy it directly from them. Or I also have brought along a small number of copies if anyone wants to buy a copy directly from me and get it signed. But I don't know if anybody's brought their checkbook. But next on the agenda is our brand new Emerging Scholar Prize, which is very exciting. This is something we're going to be doing every 2 years. And so the 2021 Emerging Scholars Essay Prize this year goes to Mira Markham for her article Svetlana, Partisans and Power in Post-War Czechoslovakia, which is based on her 2019 master's thesis in history, supervised by Dr. Chad Bryant at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. The essay was published in Contemporary European History in January 2021. In her extensively researched and well-written essay on Svetlana, a Moravian underground group in post-war Czechoslovakia, Markham forwards a new bottom-up perspective on politics and society. Combining her thorough knowledge of Czech and English language secondary sources with new and important archival materials, she offers an original interpretation of Svetlana as more than a resistance organization or a trap laid by agents of the regime. She explores what the People's Democracy meant to former partisans who had fought against fascism during the war, only to find themselves facing new and different kinds of oppression from the communist regime. This case study also sheds new light on the early history of the communist security forces, the transnational flow of information and resources into Eastern Europe just after 1948, and the lasting social effects of wartime itself. Her recounting of rivalries and tensions among former partisans brings readers close to these events and gives new depth to our understanding of how the regime perceived its own vulnerabilities in its early years and the forces within that eventually led to the show trials of the 1950s. In making this selection, committee members noted how Markham's work engages with complex historiography and debates from both the pre-communist and post-communist periods, while providing a fresh look at local power dynamics and the everyday struggles of people living outside the larger cities. This committee would also like to award an honorable mention to Boris Yorumes for his chapter, Socialism with a Melancholy Heart, Feeling Remorse and Angst Before the Prague Spring in Czechoslovakia, 1956 to 67, which was provided to the committee as an excerpt of a chapter of his ongoing PhD dissertation in history under the supervision of Dr. Eagle Glassheim at the University of British Columbia. Yorumes will graduate with his PhD in November 2021, so right around now. Employing a novel approach to research on post-Stalinist Czechoslovakia, Yorumes is a historian of emotions. His work shifts us away from traditional political narratives and breaks new ground by using narrative sources to study how Czechs and Slovaks publicly grappled with remorse and angst between Khrushchev's secret speech in 1956 and the Prague Spring in 1968. He impressed the committee with his reframing of the pre-spring period using emotions rather than traditional methods from intellectual history. For example, he contrasts the genuine remorse of Jan Rosner and Juraj Spitzer with the unrepentant voices of artists such as Milan Lajčiak and Krista Bendová. His chapter shows how the 1948ers opposed the dogmatism of party hardliners in the 1950s and captures the skepticism of a younger generation who wanted to reignite idealism in the 1960s after Khrushchev's secret speech and Czechoslovakia's economic stagnation caused them to feel disaffected. This work shows great promise to add new layers to our understandings of authoritarianism. And this was, the members of the committee were Kimberly Zarakour as chair, Molly Pucci, and Karen Williams. So. All right. So there are some announcements. One is that the Czech and Slovak Studies Workshop for 2022 will be at UNC Chapel Hill. So we'll be waiting to hear more from Chad about the precise details of the workshop, but there's a little more information that I have in the newsletter. It will take place on Friday, April 29th and Saturday, April 30th. Peter Judson will present the keynote lecture and a call for papers will be sent out soon. Also, we're curious to know of any notable publications and notable events that you would like us to know about. Anybody have any announcements to bring up about events and publications? People can also email them and we'll put them out on the email list or in the newsletter.
I have an announcement.
You have an announcement. Okay, great.
And if you want to email us, you can also email us through the website, which is really a nice new feature. I had other things going on, unfortunately, today, and I couldn't circulate these as widely as I would have liked. I apologize to Rebecca Klein-Peshova. We are putting on a symposium at Youngstown State University in May called Contact, Meetings and Movements of Jewish People and Artifacts Across Cold War Boundaries. We are seeking participants for a 3-day symposium in Youngstown, Ohio, to deliver papers exploring the meetings and movements of Jewish people, organizations, artifacts across, this is a bit redundant, boundaries. We intend for the proceedings to form the basis of an edited volume and are already in discussion with the university press. So Rebecca Klein-Peshova and I are organizing it. It's co-sponsored by the Center for Judaic and Holocaust Studies, which I currently direct, and the Jewish Studies program at Purdue University. If you are interested, there's a QR code you can follow. I will note, we are going to cover the costs of accommodation airport transfer to and from Youngstown, breakfast, 2 dinners. Limited travel funds will also be made available to graduate students, as well as non-tenure track and international scholars. There is no conference fee. So I encourage you, if you're in the field, to apply. If you know someone, and I know that there are a number of graduate students here who is doing work on this, we are looking for presentations from people at every stage of their careers and from all regions that sort of make sense for this project.
And there's more information on it in the newsletter. So lots of places to find out about this. Thank you. All right,
Oh,
so,
there's a hand in the back.
oh, yes. I do not know. Does anyone else know?
There will be a location.
But somebody needs to volunteer it.
Right.
Yeah,
I guess we'll get back on the email chain.
yeah. Yeah, if the institutions that normally host it can kind of get on that. And I will find out who at University of Pittsburgh is now the next person that should be on there, because there's been a change of leadership at Pittsburgh for Slovak. So I don't know who should be the email contact there. Okay, anything else in announcements? Questions? Okay, new business. First off, next year is Peck Prize Committee year again for articles published in 2020 and 2021. This is a 3-person committee. I've got 2 volunteers already, both of whom have served on either this committee or the Emerging Scholar Committee before. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe the 3rd volunteer will be somebody that has not previously served on one of these committees. I'm not saying that they couldn't have, but it's always nice to get someone new on. So I'm interested in getting a 3rd volunteer for the Peck Prize Committee. It does need to be someone, obviously, who's not going to have an article up for the prize. Either, if you're interested, you can either raise your hand now and volunteer, or come up and talk to us afterwards.
Yeah, I'm Chris Humble, and I'm professor of psychology at UTech. And yeah, I'd be happy to.
Excellent, excellent. So come up at the end and make sure that we get you written down as the next volunteer. Splendid, wonderful. And I love the idea of having a musicologist on the committee. I like to have some good disciplinary variety. Okay, we will also be having elections for the board next year. We have those every 3 years. And it's always good to have contested elections. So even though many of the people that are on the current board are willing to run again, please think about volunteering to run either for the at-large board member seats, or for the vice president. The vice president and president positions are also up for election. And again, contested elections are a good thing. So think about that. In terms of the responsibilities for the at-large board, which is where we have more members, that's, in the past, that has been very much a kind of an advisory role. You get asked every now and then, what is your opinion on this? There's a, occasional Zoom meetings in between. We are thinking about ways in which the members of the at-large part of the board can have more specific responsibilities. So, that's something that's kind of under discussion. Katka Chopkova is definitely very interested as an at-large board member living in Europe, for representing the, making sure that we are truly international rather than just a North American organization. So, it's always good to have international members on the board. She and Muriel Blev are both, living on the other side of the Atlantic. But so think about possibly getting yourself on the ballot for next year. And feel free to ask any of us that are here that are on the board what it is like being on the board and things like that. All right. So for discussion, we've talked a bit about the idea of tasking a specific board member with handling the web presence. And so far, Jacob has been handling that, and that's worked out well. On the other hand, we cannot assume that Jacob will be on the board forever. Do you want to say a little bit about, the process of this, or anything else that you want to say about?
Sure. Just very briefly, you've seen the website that we made. I think part of the job right now is continuing to work with Anna, or if Anna can't do it, someone else to make these updates. We've paid Anna to do this for her work, and that's important because it's a lot of work. Overseeing it is not as much work. It's about communicating with the board and deciding what's a good strategy for our online presence. I think the person who's doing this should also be ready to, at least I'm running the Twitter account, to do something like that. Facebook sort of runs itself, at least one of them, and the other Facebook account we're working on, like I've said. So I think of this role as someone overseeing digital communications. Eventually we'll be managing the listserv. You will have on membership forms going forward and opt into the listserv, right? Not an opt out, but an opt into the listserv. So we'll be making sure that all of that stuff runs pretty smoothly. It's the kind of job that, 1 week might be a bit more effort than not, but most weeks is simply keeping in touch with who's ever doing the actual creation of the website, and making sure we're talking with the board and eventually with the plenary to see that the web presence is doing something for us. There's no point in doing this unless it's actually useful.
Okay, great. I guess we kind of already asked for comments and ideas for continuing to improve the web presence, but if, not everyone was here when we were talking about that. So if anybody wants to add anything further as you've been thinking about it.
And I would say more broadly, the online footprint, like how
Yeah.
can we better communicate virtually with each other?
Okay, well, it's something that we're thinking about. We love to hear from members on it. That's all good. And as I've mentioned, there's also been, for the last few years, quite a bit of discussion on ways of making the CSA more fully international. I think in part the fact, much as we hate the pandemic, the good thing that's happened with that is that I think everybody's gotten more accustomed to, figuring out meetings that can happen online and being able to arrange things so that, you can have things that people from around the world can attend. So that has been kind of helpful, but we also want to be able to think of in terms of ways of, making the organization useful for scholars that, are living in other parts of the world and not just the United States and Canada. And so again, this is something that, we want input from the membership. We want people to be, thinking of good ideas for that. And also, one of the things that I really had in mind when I ran for office of president a few years ago was really both attracting and re-attracting members. That, a lot of people over the years have joined and, maybe been members for a while or not felt like they got enough, information from the society or things like that and fell away. I would really like to especially see ways of involving members that are not able to attend ACs because, especially we've seen during the pandemic, yeah, lots of people can't. Last year, when we had our membership meeting online, we had really nice participation in the online meeting. And so one of the ideas that we have come up with, and Kim Zarakor suggested that we might need to do a bylaws change to make this work. But we were talking about possibly doing the membership meeting completely online and instead at AC's having a social event. I'm curious what people are thinking about that. You know, that we could have a party, we could, you know, have some refreshments, things like that. You know, more of a chance for, you know, us all to talk with each other. I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads. That's looking appealing. Yes. Okay, we've heard a vote for that. It's a great idea. Yes. A second on that. Okay, it looks like people that are in the room with us really like this idea. Anybody hate this idea? Dan, you hate it?
No, I don't hate it.
Okay, Dan doesn't hate it.
The only thing that I would suggest is that if you have such a gathering where there's food, you have to go through the hotel.
Okay,
So if you want to do something like that, you might want to leave.
yeah, good point. Yeah, Dan Miller is suggesting that because things with food generally have to involve the hotel, and that becomes expensive, a social event with food probably would need to leave the hotel. So that would be a little planning, but I think it would be possible. One of the other organizations that I belong to does a member dinner. That's part of what the dues for that organization go to, and everybody enjoys it quite a bit. And sometimes it's at a restaurant, and sometimes it's at the home of a member. So we can, you know, this is something we can discuss, and we can look at the bylaws and remind ourselves whether the bylaws say that the membership meeting has to be at AC's. And that's something, you know, with bylaws changes, all we have to do is put them to a vote to the membership. And we're looking at election software anyway, and I think that would be easy to do. Okay, that's everything that's on the agenda. Are there things that people would like to bring up that we haven't brought up so far? Or comments? And I don't know, Jacob, if you can see if anybody has put anything in the chat or the Q&A.
They haven't, to the few people, oh, nice to see everybody. Now that I read your names, hi, everybody. To the people in the chat, if you have a comment or a question or something, this is the time to type. Oh, Chad?
Can I say thank you to all of you, because this is really, it feels like there's always been an energy associated with these guys.
Well, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah. Chad was just thanking us for raising the level of energy in what was already an energetic organization. And this is something that actually, I think, you know, when the executive board was last meeting, that kind of came up as well, that we felt like, you know, Tom and Jacob and I felt like, wow, we're working together really well, and we feel, you know, really like, I mean, you know, when we were first starting right after the election and the pandemic began, there was, I mean, I know there were nights when I lay in bed and I couldn't sleep because I was like, oh my God, I'm so behind on doing things with the Czechoslovak Studies Association, and I don't know what's going on. And, you know, who is going to be the secretary treasurer and who is going to be the newsletter editor? And, you know, I was going out of my mind. But gradually, Tom and Jacob and I pulled together, and the rest of the board pulled together with us. And yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about where we are right now. So I'm glad that's looking that way to our members. Yes.
I have a technical question based on the agenda. So at the beginning, you asked about objections about the approval of minutes. We did actually vote. Is that?
Oh, that's true. We
Yeah.
didn't. I'm so bad at
No.
Robert's Rules of Orders kind of.
It's a good point.
Yeah, we didn't.
I just want to make sure we're not bylaws.
Right. No, we're probably violating the bylaws there.
Is there if, do we ask for a motion?
Yeah, I think we asked.
So
for
is there a
motion.
motion to approve the,
I'll move to approve that.
all right, and a second? Any any discussion?
It sounds like it's
Eh,
Pat.
We have to, they have to vote.
Okay. Right, you can tell that Robert's Rules of Order is not my strength.
Freshly off of academic senate, Jacob Levent. So all vote for yes to approve? Nays? Abstentions? Abstention? Yeah, makes sense. I haven't read them either.
I haven't read them
Abstain, I
much.
suppose. That's good process. Yeah, so, but they pass unread.
But they were in the spring newsletter, so people had a chance to read them if you wished, even though I forgot to bring a printout of them today.
Thank you very much. That was really helpful.
Yes, thank you. Other things, any other, since we're here?
Oh, for the record, those were three I'm going to take
Yes.
notes off this. There were 3 abstentions, no negative votes, and everyone else voted yes. Yep.
Yeah.
It's, Rebecca Klein-Pashova just endorsed the idea of moving the meetings online, which will boost attendance and make it easier to take notes and vote, et cetera, and to doing something social in person. For the record, there are 16 people, no more than that. I counted poorly. 1.
But we've definitely got a quorum.
We-
Let's
we have a
see,
quorum
1,
as a-
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've got, it looks like we've got 15 people in the room right now
And 2 left. So,
and 2 left.
okay.
Unless the bylaws have been changed, this court after waiting 15 minutes for a form to arrive.
Okay.
Ah,
I'm glad you remember the bylaws better than I do, even though I read them recently.
okay.
I will say too, that, yeah, having the meeting online, one of the things that has bothered me over the years, even though I come to the meetings regularly, is that, generally we've asked for the volunteers for the different committees and everything at the meeting. And that means that, in the past, it was very limited who was volunteering for different things. And so I really want to, extend it out so that volunteers, if they're, say, in Australia and can't easily come here, or if they, are sick or whatever, that people can volunteer and be active, whether or not they can come to the meeting. All right, well, I think, yes, go ahead.
Maybe one other, I'm involved with another similar, or more of a seminar workshop series. And I was just thinking about the Young Scholar
Mhm.
Award, or the Emerging.
The Emerging.
I think it might be cool to, this group that I work with, they do a similar prize, and the winner gets to present their work. Recently, it's been online, so it's quite easy to just link up, you send out the Zoom link, you say this person won, they've won, X amount of dollars, and now they get to present their work. You bring someone to comment on it, usually senior scholar, field or whatever. That might be something to think about down the road, and developing that prize as something
Mhm.
that would make it, also sort of a networking opportunity as well.
Yeah,
Kind of raise interest in it, and then maybe transition it. I don't know if it would transition well to an in-person format, but certainly online, it'd be easy for everybody to be in. And it might also increase buy-in,
yeah,
feel like you have an event to look forward to for Czechoslovak studies.
yeah.
Just something to think about. Maybe. I should have brought it up earlier, but
Yeah.
just.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I mean, an idea doesn't necessarily strike you at the moment when I'm saying, anybody have any comments? Yeah, I mean, that's a neat idea. And since this is a new award, there is the idea that, yeah, we can figure out improvements, just as even with the other 2 awards, we can figure out improvements as we go on.
For people watching, I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Kevin Pepper from UNC Chapel.
That's right, yeah.
Kevin Pepper from UNC Chapel Hill suggested that the Emerging Scholars Prize include an either virtual or perhaps in-person event where the emerging scholar the winner would present their research, and a more senior scholar would respond to it. It would give an opportunity for people to see their work, draw attention to the work of early career scholars. So.
And I just remembered something that I was going to mention before, and now it has just gone out of my head again. Let me see if I can retrieve this thought, because it was something that I wanted to put on the agenda about something that we would do. Oh, I know what it was. It related to our web presence, and we kind of touched on it a little bit. The board also talked about the possibility of hosting. I mean, like, on the one hand, Jacob mentioned that, yeah, you know, if somebody has done an online talk or something and it's been recorded, that we could put that on the blog or something. But there's also the opportunity for us to actually host such events and you know, be the sponsors of them. I thought of that because the one of the other of the various scholarly organizations that I belong to, the International Society for the Study of Surrealism has begun doing book launch online Zoom events. And so they did one for me, which was really nice. And they've done some other ones. And so that's something that, you know, we could consider doing too. That would require for us to have somebody who was kind of in charge of the, you know, running the tech side of it, and somebody else probably that was doing the introductions for the various live Zoom events I've been on lately, you know, where I'm presenting, because with a new book, I'm doing that, just as Chad and Anna Haikova have been doing. I've noticed that it works well when there is kind of a tech person in the background and a host, and then the main presenter. So it is something that would, if we do that, it would require, you know, that, but it's something that we could think about doing.
And in fact, the Emerging Scholar Program could be integrated into something
Exactly.
like that. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, yeah, because it wouldn't have to be just new books.
Yeah, just with everything going on Zoom, it's just, I mean, it takes planning and it doesn't take no work,
But it's relatively low work, yeah.
And you can, I don't know, there's a lot of exciting things you can do.
Yeah.
Make the association
Exactly.
interactive.
Yeah, and making people's scholarship, just, you know, just as you were suggesting about the emerging scholars, and graduate students in general, known to other people in the organization and outside the organization. So, you know, making all of our hard work, you know, more accessible for people. I think that would be great. Yeah. Well, maybe we should socialize a little bit. So I suppose we need a motion to adjourn if. Okay, it looks like we're getting a motion and a second. Okay, everybody in favor?
It's officially, we're officially adjourned. Thank you, everybody.